This is my presentation for Module 3, where we're looking at the general linear model. So we're looking at specifically first what makes an album successful. So our sample is of 30 albums, and we're looking at the success of an album. So we have 3 predictors, which is the budget towards production, budget towards A&R, or artistic development, and then the amount of money spent on the actual promotion of the album. So in relation to the general linear model, we're trying to think about what is kind of the best fit, what we should use to test this. So in general, the general linear model, we use it to test linear relationships between outcomes and predictors. So as previously mentioned, our predictor is the success of the album. So that is specifically going to be a continuous variable because it'll be based on like money, etc. So that alone is telling us we should look at the MRC. Why? Because the MRC, they are best for covariates and predictors that are continuous variables, and also specifically a continuous dependent variable, which is nice because Cortina talks about it being important that a variable is continuous, because if not, it would violate like assumptions of normal distribution error, etc. So also a difference with MRC is that you have error in the model, as opposed to ANOVA, which you see can mostly or only be used for like categorical variables, which we will like discuss later. It's also comparing mean differences, and instead of error being in the model, they assume that error is in observation. So these are the results for our running the MRC based on our 3 predictor variables. As you see, so basically our null hypothesis is that the beta is going to be equal to 0. So then you also want a low standard deviation, or sorry, a standard error. You see with X1, there is a huge difference between that and X4, X7. So you are failing to reject the null there. Let's see. You can use these betas to create an equation for the model. So the beta would be like the relating to the vector of weights assigned to each predictor. And you can see that our model does account for 0.348 variation of success in albums. The other cool specific thing about creating that equation I mentioned previously is that you can compare different predictor variables to the same value, to the same dependent variable. So as long as it's the same dependent variable, you can use, you can compare the different predictor variables if you so choose to do so. So yeah, let's see. We see that we ran the test, but we need to also kind of assume that, or look at assumptions to make sure that our model actually fits the function of MRC. So first, you can see on this is relating to collinearity. So the VIF, or variance inflation factor, you see it's pretty good because it's close to 1. But we can like continue to look at some additional things as well. So in general, with correlation, you see like, as we kind of saw in the previous one, that X1 is heavily correlated with Y1. But all of the other predictor variables are not necessarily correlated with one another, as you can like see here, which is good. You don't want them to be super correlated because then you have multicollinearity. Also, we do a QQ plot to see if residuals are normally distributed. It's close to fitted line, so that's good, but we are seeing some difference in the center of the, like right here. So that could be because we have a sample size of 30, which is really not great for MRC. It's kind of leading you towards seeing that it's not really a great tool to use for just such a small sample in general. Yeah, but overall, our model is not that great to predict album sales just because it's not a great fit based on the assumptions. So we're going to look at ANOVA to see if we can predict album success based on whether they had a charting single or how many features were on the album itself. So I ran an ANOVA based on previously discussing. We have categorical variables this time, and we are comparing the mean differences between those variables. So we see here that there is no interaction among the differences. So there's no significant findings that shows that having a feature or single on the actual album success. That also could be, there's assumptions that you also need to make that are for the general linear model in general, for ANOVA and for MRC. So they would be pretty similar to what you see previously. But also let's look at ANOVA, what also could impact ANOVA, which would be looking at here, you see that the samples for each factor or each category, like they are very off. They're not equal, and ANOVA is very sensitive that you want it to basically be completely equal. So like 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, or whatever it may be for each category to actually be able to use this to run this successfully. Because there was no significance, there really isn't need to do any additional tests. Honestly, you would need to have actual, equality here as well. So, okay.